All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Atlanta City Council's Finance and Executive Committee. I'm Howard Shook, Chair. We have Dustin Hillis, Vice Chair Alex Wan, Liliana Bakhtiari, and Jason Winston are here. So, having a quorum, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I'm not aware of any proposed changes to the agenda, and so I will move its adoption. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, the ayes have it. You've all carefully read the minutes of the previous meeting. I will move their adoption. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. It'll be 6 yeas and 0 nays.
All right, that takes us to the dreaded 2025 committee goals and objectives. Are we ready to move forward with the draft that's been proposed? Tell you what, let's do this. You all should have copies of it. Let's set it aside. And then Mr. Evans, remind me, and we'll circle back at the end of the meeting. Hopefully then members will have had time to look at it, should they have any amendments, and then maybe we can get that off our plate. That takes us to public comment. Mr. Dwan Robinson.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair and the rest of the board.
Afternoon.
I have an issue that I would like for you guys to really take a look at. It's a concern of mine. I have a client that was awarded a contract in August of 2024. There has been no communication, no email, no phone call, speaking to them about next steps. And when I spoke to the person, I was told that there's no information that can be given due to a blackout period. That's a grave concern of mine because I think we use that term blackout period when it's convenient for when we drop the ball or, we don't know what happened or whatever. And I think we need a clear definition of blackout period. And if there is one, can I be directed to where I can find that? Because it's a grave concern of mine when we play that game. It's a blackout period. Once the letter has been awarded, and it's 6 months later, and I would just like for you guys to just be aware that that is really going on. Is just not a concern of mine. Most people may not come down here and want to say this, but it's a grave concern of what's going on in this particular situation is been put on hold and is causing, most minority companies can't afford to wait when they've spent so much money on the bidding and you've been awarded and you're ready to go to work. In 6 months, you're going to lose some contractors that think they're going to start working maybe a month or two later. In 6 months, you're not going to be able to find them to come back to work for you because you just don't have the resources and the economic power that most primes have. So that's a grave concern of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no one else signed up, we will dive into presentations and HR. If you're ready.
Yeah, you got it. I'll just say next slide. Good morning to Chair Shook, Vice Chair Wan. I am Calvin Blackburn, the Interim Commissioner for the Department of Human Resources, and I'm pleased to present today our quarterly presentation for the period of October through December of 2025. Next slide. We'll start with our compensation highlights. As the committee is well aware, we've completed the classification and compensation study with Evergreen and Mercer. In October, we mailed out individual compensation letters to all employees, held various on-site and virtual departmental town halls, and on January 2nd, we implemented and started entering the study changes and salary adjustments into Oracle. Next slide. So now, what are our compensation strategic priorities in light of that? Well, first, concerning classified and unclassified employees, we, because of the changes in the sort of classifications of employees, we have to redefine the new line of demarcation, basically where classified employees are and where unclassified employees, what that line is. And we are currently looking at 3 options that we're reviewing. Before we make a decision on those 3 options, we'll be meeting with the various unions, PACE, AFSCME, Pension Board, and other stakeholders to ensure that it's the fairest possible option possible. And after that, we'll begin the legislative process to revise the code to make that reflect that change. Next, our focus is on phase 1 study implementation. We have, as of January 2nd, started to move to system configuration changes concerning the study. We're now implementing FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act changes, classification title amendments and creations, and the new pay grade system. Also, one of our major priorities for 2025 will be putting together a total reward statement. That will really help employees understand the value, the high value of working at the City of Atlanta, not just compensation, but benefits, pension, vacation, other value that makes, we believe, the City of Atlanta an employer first choice. So those are our compensation strategies and priorities going forward. Next slide. I want to talk about talent acquisition and our activities during the last quarter concerning bringing in the best and brightest people to the City of Atlanta. We had a number of partnerships and events. I think this is like 8 or 9 here. Department of Defense Skill Bridge Partnership, Mays High School Career Week, and others. The talent acquisition part of our department has been working very hard to bring in talented and qualified applicants and employees. I'm happy to announce we have a 93% acceptance rate of offers that we make and a 45-day time to hire, meaning from the moment we make an offer to the time that we complete the onboarding process is 45 days, and my team informs me that that is in line with private and public sector benchmark times. So we're happy about that. Next slide. Now we get into some metrics concerning first new hires, rehires, and promotions. And you'll see that graph represents, new hires and promotions and rehires for each department. You'll notice some high numbers there with DPW and Department of Watershed Management. Those high numbers of hires and rehires are due to the turnover that happens in their departments. So just make you aware of that. Next slide. Back to sort of employee engagement, I wanted to highlight an event we had back on November 7th, a Veterans Career Fair. We partnered, Department of Human Resources partnered with City Council Member Jason Dozier and the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department to host the annual Veterans Career Fair. We're very proud of that event, and we were able to honor over 35 City of Atlanta veterans for their service and contributions. Next slide. New employee orientation, a report on the program we provide for new employees. We bring them in, and it's probably for a half day, get them oriented, and have various speakers come and explain the benefit and the great opportunity of now working for the City of Atlanta. In October, we had 287 attendees, November, 171, and we had none in December, and we didn't have any, or we call it NEO, no employee orientation during that time because of the hiring blackout due to the class and comp study, and as well as people on vacation and so forth. Next slide. Want to highlight the activities of another one of our very important divisions in HR, HRIS, Information Systems and Records Management. They are responsible for making sure that all the important data for all these changes we've been implementing recently, class and comp and others, all of this data is correctly entered into our system. And then they do the rudimentary work of just making sure people get paid correctly every pay cycle. So they work hard, and want to just highlight a couple of things that they've done. They were actively involved in open enrollment preparation, pension plan migration. But let me turn to compensation study phase 1. I want to highlight that division successfully completed 8,700 transactions as far as getting that up and running and implementing. And aside from that, just regular personnel transactions, 1,968 during the period. So it's a very hard-working division, and we're pleased with what they were able to do in light of all the changes that we had to implement in a short time. Next slide. Employee headcount. Right now, well, not right now, as of December 31, 2024, field positions are 9,332. Vacant positions, 2,500. Next slide. Just another graph to explain field positions with extra help. You'll see the largest number of departments with field positions would be police with 2,248, followed then by watershed, 1,400 approximately, fire, 1,103. And other than public safety, you see aviation at 832 field positions. Other than those shown in the pie graph, Department of Public Works and Parks and Recreation also have high numbers of field positions. Next slide. Vacant positions. And again, vacant positions. Again, police with probably one of the higher number of vacant positions, 704. Also fire, 278. Fire 244, watershed 278. And other than those departments, again, DOT, DPW, with high numbers of vacant positions, as well as Parks and Recreation, you see at 192. Next slide. Terminations and separations, again, as of between October and December of 2024. The graph sort of speaks for itself. I will explain the high number there you see at Parks and Recreations, high number of voluntary terminations. And I think that's due to the seasonal temporary hiring that they do in that department. Also, you notice APD had a high number compared to its partners of involuntary terminations, along with watershed management. Next slide. Thank you. The city requires, as you know, mandatory training for its employees, and we've been working at DHR to increase the level of compliance. The benchmark across the nation for training compliance is 95%, and you will note that we didn't hit that on any of the trainings, but we did notice increases in certain areas, particularly with LGBTQ training. I believe it was in the 70s last time I reported, and it's now up to 89%. And we see also that at least with the virtual experience training, we're at 94, and we had 90s in some other areas, but we're looking to continue to lean on the heads of our departments to really push and make sure that employees are completing the mandatory training in the time allotted. Next slide. Want to report on benefits. The benefits department did an excellent job during open enrollment, completed 2,601 employees completed open enrollment. DHR worked hard and partnered with benefits. We had a number of showcases on-site and off-site and engaged with numerous employees, and we're able to successfully get people, I want to say on board, successfully get this, the open enrollment taken care of with minimal complaints, and we're proud of what we were able to do in partnership with our benefits department. Next slide. Pensions, just a reminder, there are 3 active pension plans, and the 2011 hybrid plan will expire at the end of the year, and participants will be transitioned to the 2025 defined benefit plan. And you see the chart reflects just the number of employees in the 78 2005 plan, as well as the 2011 hybrid. You have approximately 5,600 retirees receiving pension payments right now, as well as 1,200 or so beneficiaries. Next slide. Wellness. This is also a very important part of what the city provides and what DHR manages. Want to make you aware of just numerous upcoming wellness events this year. You see February through May, it almost seems that there are numerous events. There's the Know Your Heart free screening coming up in, I think, February 12th, tomorrow, I believe. I think it's the day's 11th. And then it's Wear Red Day, and I can't see the date on that one, but that's coming soon. So wellness has been very active in making sure that our employees are taken care of, especially during the difficult time we passed through during the holidays. Related to that, next slide, we want to talk about how employees are utilizing EAP. The benchmark, I believe, of utilizations between, I'm told by my team, 8 to 10%. And you'll notice that slide reflects from October, November, December, we were above that mark each time, 15% in October, 11% in November, 12% in December. So the takeaway from that is our employees are really utilizing our EAP services, and we think they really add value not only to the employees, but to the city. Next slide. Related to that, I want to point out, particularly with the public safety behavioral health unit utilization, we noticed a huge spike in December, and I want to credit the team for why that happened. And they, of their own initiative, reached out, and I think they visited every single fire station and every single police precinct during the month of December to engage employees. And that's why you see the high number there, 1,500 approximately engagements there, employees engaged during that time. So again, that unit is very active in providing valuable support to our public safety employees. Next slide. So we listed our upcoming strategic priorities. We have a number of them. I'll just highlight some of them. Again, as I mentioned, total reward statement. We think that's going to have a huge impact in explaining to employees what value they actually receive by working at the city. We're going to target, amongst other things, reducing vacancy rates. We'll prioritize launching a citywide professional development training class. We've also launched a leadership academy that will be rolling out in fiscal year 2026 for our directors and senior leaders. And we'll be developing action plans to address concerns through benefit enhancement, cost containment options, and direct communication to employees. So we are working hard. I think we are very active from October to December in attempting to bring results to the City of Atlanta employees. So thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
We've been joined by Ms. Marcy Collier Overstreet. Thank you, Commissioner, for what I would regard as a model presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Questions or comments? Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the report. Very good data in here. I have a question regarding the slide 5, which is the new hires, rehires, particularly in relation to slide 12, which is the terminations and separations. So what I'm getting at here is retention. There are some departments that, while there's been robust activity with the hires and rehires, are actually falling backwards because of the departures. Is there any additional context to that that sheds any light or should kind of help us not be so concerned about where we're at in terms of our staffing levels?
I would hesitate as far as these specific departments. I don't have any real additional context right now. I might have some thoughts, but not context. Haven't been really able to drill down into the whys of it. I just know that there is high turnover in DPW and Department of Watershed Management. I know, in particular, we look at DOT with vacant positions, for instance. I know that they have worked to reduce the number of their positions, and prayerfully that will result in some change with the other metrics. But as far as the specific answers, I don't have that. I'd have to drill down.
Okay. Maybe what would be revealing too, and it's just something that I'd have you and your team look at.
Yes, sir.
Be curious, maybe over time. I feel like council last summer in the budget process really leaned into enhancements to help with retention as well as recruitment. I guess I'm looking for evidence now that our strategies are working. And so while I know some of them didn't kick in until January, I'm wondering if you did a time, look at things that maybe everything was front loaded at the beginning of the year and we did see an improvement in terms of departures in the second half of the year. So again, I think anything that you can help provide to us that evidences salary enhancements, the class and comp study, the pension, that we've turned a corner, would be really helpful.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, we'll do that, and hopefully we'll see changes in that as you know, this is from last year
Yeah.
towards the end of the year. So hopefully,
Right.
when we look at that, we'll see some changes and trending in a positive direction. But our team will take a look at it.
Yeah, I'm hoping we even started seeing it in the second half of the year. So if someone, even if you looked at the first 6 months and the second 6 months.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm just looking for evidence that we did the right things and that the investments that we made are starting to pay off. I think the other one is just more of an observation, and we'll get into this more during the budget conversation. The slide where you talked about the filled positions and the vacant positions is really troubling to me on two accounts. One is the total number of positions. Again, I think I raised this during a budget that we're approaching 12,000 city employees is it's a little mind-boggling to me, to be honest with you. I know that we're a $3.6 billion enterprise, but at the same time, that number is just jarring. But more importantly, I feel like we're just stuck on this vacancy number or just percentage, and it's kind of across departments. And while hiring blitzes and job fairs are helpful, it just seems to me I just feel like there's maybe a more systemic, fundamental challenge we're not addressing, because I just feel like in the, you know, this term, we haven't moved off of that. So again, I'll put a pin in that. I think when it comes to budget time, let's talk about that. And if it's a matter of conceding that really it's going to be tough filling those 2,500 positions, then let's figure out what it looks like for us to have a 10,000 employee workforce and do right by the 10,000 that are with us, instead of continuing to chase 2,500 people that are never going to walk in our door. So let's hold that, look forward to that policy conversation with you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you for the presentation. Echoing my colleagues, it is really well put together. I do have some questions. Councilmember Juan touched on probably some of my biggest concerns. I was curious, though. I mean, he touched on a lot of it. Looking at page really quickly, what page is this? 12. I was curious, why the higher number on voluntary termination in Parks and Rec? Was HR able to do exit interviews there? Did we find a pattern?
Yeah, that's due to seasonal.
That's entirely seasonal.
I don't
Seasonal
want to say
hires,
it's entirely,
got it.
but our position is that because of the seasonal nature, that's why there are a number of voluntary.
Well, that's a relief. Okay, thank you. There was just a couple of other things. Less so more about the presentation and just things that I've been noticing. You have an extraordinary team. I mean, they're sitting right behind you there. And God bless April Weeks for always answering every single one of my questions. I suppose one of the things I've been struggling with is we've started a lot of initiatives with HR. My office has, and there's been a lot of changes, obviously, where we've had turnover, but there have been things that I feel that have been lost between the cracks. So one of them has been employee complaints when folks come to me and I refer them to HR and those investigations. Obviously, I'm not allowed to we're not allowed to be apprised of those, completely understandable. But it seems that some of those have gone on for over a year. And, you know, being concerned about employee rights, obviously knowing that HR has a lot of management, a lot of work you all have to do, and I do applaud you for that. But I do think when it comes to our employees and that feeling of helplessness and oftentimes feeling like they don't have anywhere to go, and that being left unchanged for so long, I know can cause morale issues and safety issues. So if we can talk about that more offline, I would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I'll just hint at, it's an area I've been focusing on in the last 2 to 3 months, that particular issue. And we're making some changes and reorganization. And the team has been really drilling down and clear the backlog of some of those cases. We had some that had gone back, too long. So we've been actively working to clear those. And I'm measuring that on a weekly basis, targeting clearing the backlog. But I'd be happy to talk to you offline about that. That's an area of focus for me. And we're looking at making some significant changes in that department to increase efficiency.
And I have every faith that you are. If we could actually, perhaps, whether or not sent in emails or done in a presentation, can there just be a breakdown of how HR handles issues of like sexism,
Sure.
racism,
Absolutely.
sexual harassment, all of those
Absolutely.
things? That would be really helpful.
Absolutely, council member, happy to do it.
Thank you. And then there was, with your predecessor, there was talks of, especially when it comes to retention, I had asked DPW, DWM, how many of their employees actually lived in the city for those departments, and the number was, I don't think it comes as a surprise to any of us, but shocking, like disturbingly low. Same thing with fire, same thing with a lot of our other departments. And one of the things that we were talking about doing was engaging the apartment association and other agencies about doing some sort of deal, like whether or not it was the sign-on bonuses that come with apartments and keeping that year-round for city employees. We were exploring all options to assist with, similar to how we have the housing program for our officers. How do we expand something like that for our essential employees who carry each of these departments? So if we could pick up that initiative, or if I could meet with you all and kind of give you, there were a couple of employees that were working on, and I think Ms. Weeks was aware that we were working on that. So to whatever degree we can pick that back up.
I'd be happy to be with you, council member, and talk about that
Okay.
offline. Thank you.
And then the last thing was just 24-R-3626. It was legislation that this council passed some time ago. The idea was expansion of healthcare benefits. I had emailed you about that, I believe, February 3rd, and we are now 2 months past. The presentation was supposed to be back in December. Obviously, there's a lot going on. We're 2 months past that date. Is there a time that HR be ready to present on the legislation about expanding our healthcare benefits to include more mental health support?
You know, and I appreciate that, council member. I know we've had some emails about that. I've recently spoken with Director Weeks, I guess just today, about that a little while ago. So I'll reach out to you offline. I know we need to get that going. I know you need, there was some data that you needed concerning that. So we, actually, after this meeting, we'll reach out to you and try to set up a time to talk about when we'll be ready to do that. I think we're still collecting things, and I know we've been a bit delayed on it, but we're going to take care of that.
Yeah, if you all could get back to me today, that would be a huge help. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And that concludes my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been joined by Mr. Byron Amos. I don't see anyone else. Commissioner, I have a question. What's been your biggest surprise?
My biggest surprise. Really, you know, you hear a lot of different things. Really, how talented the team is in HR. You know, people, you only generally hear about HR sometimes when there's a problem. When I was in the law department, you know, you generally only hear about HR when there's a problem, something's wrong with the check, you know, and so you don't realize, I've been surprised at how efficient, how effective the team is on the day-to-day things that are sort of quietly done. They're sort of quiet professionals in my regard. So I've been pleasantly surprised and pleased with how talented the team is, how committed they are, and how professional they are.
Thank you for that. I don't see anything else, so we'll let you get back to work. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and our final presentation is on the FY24 audit. I know they have managed to reach out and brief all the committee members prior to this presentation, so.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Carr, Deputy CFO. So I wanted to go ahead and start the presentation. Our fiscal year end is June 30th, and so we have 6 months after the end of the year to complete our audit, which is in December. Some of the reports that you see before us, we have to complete all of these reports before the end of the year. And so I'll go over some of those reports that we have to complete. We have our ACFR, which is for our central government. We also have our PAFR that I wanted to share, and I think most of you all have already received a copy. If not, we do have copies that we can share with you today. In addition to that, we have our financial statements for aviation, watershed. In addition to that, we have our pension plans, which includes our general employees, fire, and police. In addition to that, we have loss, We have T-Splosh, car rental, just to name a few. So we have completed all of these audits and completed the reports and submitted those to the state of Georgia. The only one that is outstanding is a single audit. And so the single audit is going on right now, and we hope to have that done by the end of March. On the next slide, I wanted to kind of stay high level and talk about revenues. So when you look at FY23, we have revenues of $3.5 billion compared to FY24 of $3.6 billion. And I will highlight some of the revenue sources. So when you look at the darker blue, we have $1.5 billion for general government compared to $1.6 billion for the general government. And this is where we have our general fund. We have our property taxes. We have hotel motel. In addition to this item, we also have our TAD funds, grant funds, E911, just to name a few. In addition to that, we have aviation, which is the $1.2 billion compared to $1.1 billion. And really that slight decrease is the fact that we had federal funding in FY23 that we don't have in FY24, but there's no concern here because our revenues are increasing for the Department of Revenue. We also have watershed, the lighter blue, $727 million for FY23. FY24, we had $782 million. And again, this is really due to the fact that we have an increase in water and wastewater. We are beyond the pandemic, so of course we see more conventions, businesses, so that actually helps with the water and wastewater. We also have solid waste of $64 million in FY23. FY24, we had $55 million, so that went down. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that in our presentation, but for a couple reasons, solid waste decreased. We had increase in expenses, and also we had an AR adjustment for the Department of Solid Waste. On the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about fund balance. Fund balance has grown by $83 million when we look at it 10 years ago in 2014. And so we are at a position where our fund balance is between 20 and 25% because that is our policy. But when you look at year over year, fund balance in FY23 was $246 million. At the end of the audit, it was $225 million. So we did have a decrease in fund balance, and really that's just because we had changes in personnel expenses and other initiatives. So we wanted to make sure that we came before you to kind of share that information, but as long as we stay within that range, there are no concerns as far as fund balance is concerned. On the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about watershed. Watershed net position has increased by $201 million. And so when you look at year over year, watershed has increased. But of course, we talked about that before because we had an increase in water and wastewater and also the most. So we've been seeing an increase there as well. Department of Aviation. So we look at the Department of Aviation, that has increased by $197 million when you look at year over year. For a couple reasons, the revenues increased for aviation. We had an increase in concession revenues, increase in parking, and also we had increase in PFC charges. So just wanted to share that. The next slide I wanted to bring to your attention is the deficit fund. So we have two deficit funds. We have group insurance and we also have solid waste. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the group insurance. So over the past 5 or 6 years, group insurance has had a deficit, and that is due to the fact that we have not increased our health rate. So with that being said, we've seen an increase and the fund has gone into a deficit position. But we like to look at it in a different spin because right now we had an increase in January with open enrollment. So we do think that we will continue to see a trend as far as the decrease with group insurance. In addition to the fact that we've had allocation from other departments, so we are decreasing group insurance. Solid waste did go up for this audit, and a couple reasons here. Of course, we had an increase in personnel expense. We also had an increase in post-closure land expenses and year-end adjustments. Next year, we do think that we'll be in a different position for solid waste because we did have a rate increase ordinance 24-01214. So there was a 3.5% increase for FY25, and then the year after that, it will be 2%. Year after that, it will be 2%. So we do think that we'll be in a different position for solid waste. The next slide, I'll make it really quick here. As far as with the pensions, so we do have the 3 pension plans. So if we focus on the darker blue for the general employees pension plans, that is funded at 73.2%, for fire 70.8%, and for police 75.4%. So all of our pension plans are funded within that range of 70%. So we're really in a good position here. What we looked at, when you look at the assets in the market, we had a really, really good year. So that's what we're seeing there. On the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about OPEB, which is a fancy name for the medical expenses for retirees. You notice that that has decreased. So year over year, we've had a decrease in OPEB for 2 reasons. We had a higher discount rate, and then we also had lower than anticipated claims. So we wanted to share that. We do know that retirees are taking advantage of some of the wellness initiatives that the commissioner just talked about in his last presentation. So that is the end of my presentation, and I will pause here and don't know if you wanted to chime in, CFO Bala, before Doug comes in from Alden Jenkins.
Only thing I want to chime in is I want to just acknowledge the controllers team. It is a very small in-house team that manages all of the financial reporting on behalf of the entire city of Atlanta, including the enterprises as well as the service funds, as well as the tangential funds associated with the city. You know, accounting is an area where it's becoming harder and harder to find good employees and qualified candidates to do this work. So having a team in-house, I think Doug and Pat can vouch for me on this, but very few municipalities actually do their own financial reporting, maybe about 4 to 5% that are doing it in-house of this size and this magnitude. So just want to thank the team for their hard work and their diligence. I'll turn it over to Doug to go over the audit findings, which I feel like even for this year continues to see improvement. So hats off to the team.
Yeah, thank you, CFO Bala, and thank you to the entire team.
Oh, and we did want to acknowledge Tiffany. Can you stand up? Tiffany Golden Jones is our interim controller. She's been with the city for 14 years, 12. I had to give you 2. I think last year and this year, those kind of double up on you because there was really a lot of work being done. But I'm glad we only paid you for you know, regular salaries. But Tiffany was our deputy controller, now is our interim controller, and has been with the city and in the financial reporting team for quite some time. And we're happy that she stepped up to the plate and helping us navigate the next chapter of the office. Thank you, Tiffany.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Doug Moses, the engagement partner responsible for the city's audit. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the ACFR and then also the auditor's discussion and analysis. And that's what I'm going to be talking from today, kind of touching on some of the highlights. And so if you have any questions as I'm going through, stop and ask, or I can address those questions at the end. Okay. All right, just a quick update about Alden Jenkins. So this past year, we served over 725 governments in the Southeast. 175 plus received the GFOA Award in Excellence in Financial Reporting. And the city of Atlanta is amongst that number, actually threefold, because of having to prepare ACFRs for not only central overall cities financial statements, but also for aviation and watershed as well. Currently, we have 14 offices in 6 states. Effective June 1st of this year, we're adding a new office in Greenville, South Carolina, and so we'll have 15 this year. As far as our engagement team leaders, pretty much the same as previously, except for one change. This year, we had Daniel Anderson to be responsible for the pension plan audits, and so he's in our Bradenton office. And so he did a great job presenting to the investment board committee last month, and he's done a great job taking over from Allison Wester. All right. As far as the financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our responsibility as your external independent auditor is to give an opinion on whether or not the financial statements are materially correct. We've issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the basic financial statements for the city as a whole. Now, we did rely on other auditors who audited 3 of your component units, Atlanta Development Authority or Vest Atlanta, the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority, and the Atlanta Housing Opportunity, Inc. And so those were audited by other auditors, and we relied on their report. We also issued clean opinions or unmodified opinions for aviation as well as watershed, and then also clean opinions on your 3 pension plans, general employees, police officers, and firefighters. As far as our report, in accordance with government auditing standards or the Yellow Book report, we did have one finding that was considered to be a material weakness, and we'll talk about that a little later. Also, we didn't have any compliance findings as it relates to the financial statement audit. Again, like Deputy CFO Carr alluded to earlier, that we are conducting the single audit right now, and we do anticipate issuing the single audit report by the March 31st deadline. This year, we had 3 federal award programs that were required to have a single audit, and those were the Airport Improvement, the Federal Transit Formulation Grant, Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. And so again, we'll be finishing up the single audit next month. All right, the main thing here I want to point out as it relates to our relationship with management, we received full cooperation from management staff and others. There were no disagreements with management on any accounting issues or financial reporting matters. As it relates to audit adjustments, we did propose several audit adjustments. Those adjustments are reflected in the city's ACFR as well as in the city's general ledger. We did have several past audit adjustments that were deemed to be not material. So we concur with management on posting those adjustments at year end. As far as it relates to our independence, we are independent of the city and its financial reporting process in accordance with AICPA professional standards. There were no fees paid to Mallory and Jenkins for any type of management advisory services that would have impacted our independence as your external auditor. All right, next few slides going to kind of go over some financial trends. This first one is looking at your general fund balance over the last 5 years. And you can see how it's been trending. As the Deputy CFO mentioned earlier, you did have a slight decrease in your fund balance this year that was anticipated by $21.3 million, going down from 246 to 225 roughly, to $225 million. This next slide is looking at your fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures and transfers out. For June 30 governments, the rule of thumb is to have anywhere from 2 to 3 months reserve, or 16 to 25%. And so you all are within that range, coming in at 23.9%, which represents about 2.9 months reserve. And so even though this is the lowest it's been in the last 5 years, you're still within that range, and therefore the city did not have to rely on a tax anticipation note subsequent to year end. Next slide is looking at watershed management operating income over the last 5 years. These are in thousands, and you can see how your operating income did decline down to $72 million. But again, when you look at non-operating revenue, which is your most investment income, things of that nature, you actually had an increase in your net position by $201 million. Next slide is looking at your Department of Aviation operating loss comparison over the last 5 years. And again, this year, 2024, is the lowest that your operating loss has been, which is good, coming in at $40 million. But again, you get a lot of non-operating revenue, such as most investment income, capital contributions, and things of that nature that resulted in your net position actually increasing by $197 million. Next slide is looking at your sanitation service fund, operating income and loss for the last 5 years. And you can see how your operating loss, you did have operating loss this year of $9.5 million. And then your net position deficit actually increased by 10 million. Continuing on with the Sanitation Service Fund, looking at your deficit net position compared to advances and interfund balances over the last 5 years. And so you would like to see these two lines, the gap between the two kind of narrow versus widening. And but you can see that you did have an increase in your advances and interfund balances this year, going from 37 million to $53 million. And then your deficit net position actually increase as well from 79 million to 90 million. So again, the city does have a repayment plan for that advance to be repaid and paid off by June 30 of 2033. And again, like Deputy CFO Carr mentioned, that the new rates and things of that nature, beginning in fiscal year 2025, we should see a turn in your deficit improving, and then also your advance from other funds decreasing as well. This is looking at your group insurance fund, which is your internal service fund. And you can see that the lines here, the gap is closing in, and that's what you want to see. And so you see that your advances and interfund balances decreased from 22 million down to roughly 18.8 million. And then your deficit improved from 27 million to 24 million. So we'd like to see that continue to come closer to a point in the near future where your deficit would be zero and be positive going forward, and then that advance being paid off, which is scheduled to be paid off by 2030. All right, so CFO Baller told me that for next year, we need to move these next two slides up front, and I agree. Looking at your governmental activities net position in thousands over the last 5 years, and coming out, out of that pandemic, where you all had $621 million deficit in your net position in 2020, and you see how you climbed out of that, hitting positive net position in 2022 of $6 million, 2023, $350 million, and then this year to $570 million. That's an increase of $220 million, or 63% increase over the prior year. And so that's really good. And this is looking at your business type activities net position over the last 5 years. And again, continues to improve year over year. 9.4 billion in 2023 to roughly 9.9 billion in 2024. And that's a $389 million increase over the prior year, or about 4% increase. So again, the financial condition of the city is looking pretty good. Just kind of looking at the citywide from that perspective, and then also looking at some of your success in some of your other funds as well. All right, so this year we only had one finding, and so just dealing with year-end closeout procedures, some adjustments that we had to make. I would like to share with everyone the good news that you no longer had a material weakness finding for your pension plans. I believe you all have had a finding there for the last, 10 plus years. But again, the city has made sure to allocate the appropriate resources to get people in, consultants in, to help the city get the pension records and things of that nature cleaned up. And so, again, we just had some minor exceptions that we had as management recommendations for improvements. But again, nothing that we felt warranted a material weakness finding as it relates to your pension plan. So again, hats off for the city for doing a great job in getting that cleared up. Overall, I'd say that, again, I don't place too much emphasis on this material weakness finding. Things kind of pop up where you have to make adjustments at year end. So we did have adjustments pertaining to grant reporting for several grant funds, and then also dealing with property tax revenues and hotel motel tax revenues as well. But again, the city does a great job. Again, of the 720 plus governmental clients that we audit, probably 1% to 2% of them actually prepare their own ACFR or financial statements. And so again, you all prepare your own financial statements, and so that says a lot. And then also being able to meet the December 31st deadline speaks volumes as well. Regardless of having turnover, the city was still able to meet that deadline. And then I always say I look at how responsive and proactive clients are when it comes to dealing with errors and things of that nature. So anything that we bring to their attention, they're immediately having an internal meeting and discussion about it, and meeting with us and then coming up with a corrective action plan to resolve it so that those errors do not repeat going forward. And so I'm always appreciative of how proactive that management is here at the city. All right. We just had some management recommendations for improvements, just dealing with grant recording and financial reporting. Again, we understand that there has been some turnover within the grants department, and so once those staffing levels are improved, we do recommend probably having an operational assessment done just to kind of improve the policies and procedures and things of that nature within that department. Had a management point dealing with debt issuance for your governmental funds, dealing with intergovernmental long-term payables, that the other financing sources and related expenditure amount adjustments were not made at the fund level. It was a net effect of zero on the fund balance. But again, you have to make sure that that activity is actually recorded as well. The defined contribution plan is another repeat management point where you had forfeited funds of about $16.3 million that has accumulated over the last several years. That can be used to offset employer contributions. We did meet with city management, and I think that the city is planning on using some of the forfeited funds this year to offset employer contributions. So, segregation of duties for Department of Aviation. We looked at a sample of 25 disbursements, and this saw where one exception relating to an invoice that wasn't properly approved. So we want to make sure that all invoices have that level of approval on it. And then, like I alluded to earlier, we did have some minor exceptions based on sampling that we done for the census data for your 3 pension plans. And again, nothing alarming, you know, where we look at your census data that's sent to the actuaries and we compare that to the city's records, and just making sure that the actuaries are getting accurate information. And so we may have seen an exception where the retirement date was wrong once we pulled the city's records and things of that nature. So again, nothing's significant enough to warrant a finding, but we just noted that these were some minor exceptions that we noted during the audit. All right. GASB continues to be proactive in coming out with standards. These are not necessarily new standards, but that they're introducing. These been on the plate for the last several years, and so the city does a great job in looking at these standards and seeing how it's going to impact the city. And we also try to have CPE classes to keep our clients abreast of what's coming out so that they're not blindsided. And the last thing I'll say is we continue to offer free continuing education classes for our clients, free of charge. We try to have at minimum 4 a year each quarter. And you can see the various topics that we cover. And we appreciate the city of Atlanta for allowing its employees to participate in those classes as well. So real quick, we do have an IT cybersecurity practice as well. So if you're ever in need of an IT cybersecurity audit, assessment, vulnerability testing, penetration testing, just let us know. And then we also have a governmental advisory practice as well, led by David Roberts and Kate Russell, where they can do operational assessments and performance audits as well. All right, that concludes my presentation. I can address any questions that you all may have at this time. And again, thanks for having the opportunity to provide services to the city. Again, once again, a great audit for our 3rd year doing the city's audit.
All right, thank you for that report. Thanks to the finance department. Mr. Winston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to congratulate CFO and his team on a very clean audit here. I know Councilmember Overstreet likes to remind me that we do get these audits one-on-one in a briefing. One of the questions that I brought up and the finding that we had about, around the balance sheet, that it seemed to just been a very minor clerical error in terms of the reporting there. So it was very minor, but I just thought that it was important to just clarify that for the general public, and knowing that the one finding that we did find in our general fund was mostly an asset kind of allocation error that needed to be fixed. I was just wondering if you could explain that a little bit, CFO.
Yeah, I can.
Or go ahead.
Yeah, I can mention. So again, like for instance, that hotel motel tax bullet under that one finding, it was a cutoff issue. And so the city actually accrued or recorded as accounts receivable and revenue an additional month at year end, but that month actually pertained to fiscal year 2025. And so we had to make an adjustment to reduce your hotel motel tax receivable and the revenue. So things like that where maybe things got picked up in the wrong period and things of that nature.
Okay. And then one other question was around our net position and looking at the 5-year trend. If you look at it, just trying to get a better understanding, has it been more of a focus on a decrease in our liabilities or focusing on trying to make sure that we're increasing our revenue as across pertaining to our assets during that 5-year period?
Yeah, that specific slide was looking at all governmental activities across the board. And so it has been performing really, really well. That's really, when you look at that, it's more of a testament to the city as a whole. Strong tax base, strong ability to go out and leverage its resources to get the appropriate grants. The TADs are doing real well. So all of that has benefited the city of Atlanta tremendously, and also kind of working through past COVID to making sure that we're structurally aligning all city operations across the board. I will say, and you've seen it today too, is that we are going to be looking more holistically at city operations to make sure that the general fund isn't the one that's being over leveraged or overutilized, right? There's a lot of expenses that should be aligned to appropriate funds, and we're going to go through that process in detail to make sure that each enterprise fund, service fund, operating fund, it's paying its fair share and lifting its fair weight.
Okay. Thank you. Again, congrats on a great audit.
All right, thank you. This being a week where pitchers and catchers report, I'll use baseball terminology and say that, I mean, this audit may not be a perfect game, but it's a complete game shutout. And we've seen a lot of scorecards that didn't turn out this way in the past here. And speaking of baseball, Mr. Bala, could you tell us about your Triple Crown again?
If you want me to talk about the AAA rating we received sometime last year, it still holds strongly well, and we're going to work real hard to maintain it.
Well, no, but your Triple Crown award.
I thought you were talking about AAA rating. I don't mention forget a chance to say that, but we are a Triple Crown award winner for the ACFR, PAFR, and budget report through the GFOA. So, one of a few municipalities that's doing it across the board.
All right. Anything else? All right, nothing like a clean audit. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you to the Finance Department for bringing us this good news. Mr. Evans, could you send our 2 first reads, please?
Item number 1 is 25-0-1081, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute amendment number 5 for agreement FC 10592, citywide office printer MFDS supplies and services with Xerox Corporation on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management, to add funding to the agreement for a 90-day extension and to waive the competitive source selection provisions contained in Section 2-1187 of Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, as well as any other conflicting code provisions, to extend the term of the agreement effective April 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2025, in an amount not to exceed $821,284.00. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And item number 2 is 25-0-1082, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the agreement listed here, first in turnout timers with Westnet LLC, to add the Atlanta Fire and Rescue Department as an authorized user and to add funding on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management in an amount not to exceed $339,845.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
All right. Mr. Evans, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to sound the captions today. I am not in good voice.
Certainly. Number 3, 25-0-1049, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute amendment number 2 to the agreement here with Cone Resnick on behalf of the Mayor's Office of International and Immigrant Affairs to ratify services rendered, revive, and extend the term of the agreement for 5 months retroactively, commencing November 16th, 2024 through April 15th, 2025, and to add additional funding in an amount not to exceed $16,848.50 for the purposes of supporting the administrative closeout of the Emergency Food and Shelter Humanitarian Program. All contractor work will be charged to and paid from the Fund Department account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you. Do we need a presentation on this? Motion to approve by Juan, which I will second. If there's no questions or comments, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Ayes have it, so ordered.
Number 2, 25-0-1082, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the agreement listed here. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Number 4, item number 4, 25-0-1050, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond to waive Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 1, Section 2-910 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to ratify the City of Atlanta's submission on behalf of the Mayor's Office of International and Immigrant Affairs of an application for the fiscal year 2023 case management pilot program in the amount of $4 million to, if awarded, be utilized for funding providing comprehensive case management services to non-detained non-citizens known to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the City of Atlanta, to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into any required agreements necessary for the implementation of the award and for other purposes.
Motion to approve by Bakhtiari, second by Juan. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 5, items number 5 and 6 might be taken as a block. If
Yes.
you'd like. Item number 5 is 25-0-1056, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Juan to provide for the annexation of property located at 2231 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, Georgia 30316, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the State of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes. Item number 6 is 25-0-1060, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Juan to provide for the annexation of properties located in the Brighton Village subdivision located in unincorporated DeKalb County to the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta pursuant to the 60% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Georgia Department of Community Affairs of such annexation and for other purposes.
And I will move to add Ms. Bakhtiari as a sponsor to both, which she seconds. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion to hold both items. Second by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Right, the ayes have it. Move approval. Or no, we're holding those, sorry.
Item number 7 is 25-0-1062, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Juan authorizing the transfer of $20,000.00 from the Council District 5 carry forward account to the Council District 5 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes.
I'll offer an amendment to add Ms. Bakhtiari's name, which she seconds. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Move approval is amended.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Item number 8, 2501064, an ordinance by council members Matt Westmoreland, Alex Wan, Liliana Bakhtiari, and Andrea L. Boone, authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $2,000.00 to the Atlanta Pride Run 2025 pursuant to Section 6-306 of the City of Atlanta's Charter and for other purposes.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Bakhtiari. If there's nothing else, let's vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Into Section J, Resolutions Number 9, 25R3122, a resolution by council members Byron D. Amos, Michael Julian Bond, Andrea L. Boone, and Marcy Collier Overstreet, authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for the sole source purchase of a ministerial robe owned and worn by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for display at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, not to exceed $325,000.00. The purchase will be charged to and from, paid from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Motion's been made and seconded to add the iPro report. If there's nothing else, let's vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Let's open the vote.
Just discussion before you do that.
Yep, I'm sorry.
I know Councilwoman Overstreet is in there. She had a question during transportation. Did you get it answered?
Thank you, Councilmember Amos. Yes, this answers the question specifically, and I will relay the information. Thank you.
Yeah.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. It's
Thank you.
favorable as amended. On to item number 10, 25R3125. There is a substitute in everyone's packet that will change the caption.
Second.
That vote is open. The vote is closed. The substitute has been approved. The caption reads, it's 35R3125, a substitute resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund a customer for overpayment to their water and sewer account in the amount of $58,905.05. All funds to be charged to paid from the fund department organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Let's open the vote.
Moved by Councilmember Juan and second was,
By Ms. Bakhtiari.
the vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you.
Item number 11 is 25R3142. Again, there's a substitute in everyone's packet that will change the caption.
Second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute reads 25R3142, a substitute resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee to execute a banking services agreement with Wells Fargo Bank, N.A. on behalf of the Department of Finance for a term of 5 years with 1 2-year renewal option and for other purposes. The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays. Item number 12 is 25R3143. There's a substitute in your packet. The caption does remain the same. It's a resolution by Finance Executive Committee to opt out of the new statewide homestead exemption contained in the state law at OCGA 48544.2B in accordance with the requirements of state law at OCGA 48-5-44.2I and for other purposes. The vote is open. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute's approved.
I mean, all we're doing is sending it from here to full council.
What I heard. All right, the vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays. And item number 13, 25R3144. A resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the first renewal option to the agreement listed here for citywide security guard services with Dynamic and Safeguard Security on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness, Department of Enterprise Asset Management, Department of Parks and Recreation, and Municipal Court of Atlanta, effective March 3rd, 2025 through March 2nd, 2026, and to authorize amendment number 4 to increase the billable rate from $15.45 per hour to $21.00 per hour, in an amount not to exceed $3,896,931.20, expressly contingent upon the approval and adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
And let's hear from Dean.
Good afternoon,
Afternoon.
Council Chair and other members of the council. My name is Chris Davis, Commissioner for the Department of Enterprise Assets Management. Purpose for this legislation, as is stated, is to, as we enter into our first renewal, to raise the rate to be for the contractor to be competitive. This is to put them in alignment with the state of Georgia security guard efforts across the state. Currently, right now, this $15 equates to about $10, $11 per hour. What we're requesting here is a rate that takes them up to $15, $16 an hour, which is a little more livable rate for that service.
Questions, comments? Mr. Amos.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. I'm not sure if it'll be DEEM or contract compliance, but are we checking our security companies to ensure that they're properly training their employees by having the proper certification from the state?
Yes, we are. This is also part of the reason why we need to be competitive, because this helps us to be able to hire the staff that actually meet those background requirements.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion by Juan, second by Amos. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas and 0 nays.
And we do have a dual.
That's right. Section K dual refers. Number 14, 25R3121. This is a resolution by council members Michael Julian Bond, Jason H. Winston, Jason Dozier, Byron Amos, Antonio Lewis, Dustin Hillis, Howard Shook, Matt Westmoreland, Andrea L. Boone, Amir Faroki, Alex Wan, Liliana Bakhtiari, and Mary Norwood, as amended by CDHS, to request the mayor and the necessary administration staff and departments to conduct a feasibility study and report back to the city council within 90 days concerning homeless, affordable, transitional housing and the creation of an authority and special levy district to address Atlanta's homeless and housing needs, including a review of all available financing tools and for other purposes.
Motion to approve by Juan, which I will second. If there's something else, let's vote.
Vote is open. all members please vote? Okay, the vote is closed, 7 yeas and 0 nays. There are 2 items on the held section, 3 actually. Number 20 is 24R40.
No, we're amending it.
4319, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute special procurement agreement listed here, job order contracting consulting services with the Gordian Group, Inc., to provide consulting services for moving Atlanta forward construction and renovation projects on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management and the departments listed in Exhibit A on a task order basis pursuant to Section 2-1191.1 of the Atlanta Code of Ordinances for a term of 3 years and with 2 one-year renewals for a total amount not to exceed $5 million and 0 cents. All contracts to work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein. There's an amendment in the packet.
Move to amend by adding the iPro. Second by Mr. Juan. Let's vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Oh, let's need a
Motion to approve is amended. Question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to know exactly what the service is on this. This is not actual construction or execution. It's something else, right?
Right, so basically what this is a structure for putting together the task orders as relates to each project.
Okay. And this is already contemplated in the budgeting for
Correct.
the bonds? Okay, thank you. I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to approve as amended. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Now 24.
It's 24R4610. There's a substitute in your packet that will change the caption.
Move to bring the substitute forward. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. And the vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
And the new caption is?
This is a resolution by Councilmember Shook as substituted by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management to adjust water and sewer service charges on certain customer accounts in accordance with Atlanta City Code Section 154-28 in an amount of $81,682.10 and for other purposes.
Second. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, and lastly, 26.
This is 25-0-1045, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone to amend Chapter 114, Personnel, Article 9, Classification Plan of the Code of Ordinances, City of Atlanta, Georgia, so as to provide for certain position abolishments, creations, reclassifications, class creations, above entry authorizations, employee position transfers, position funding, allocation changes, and other personnel actions in line with the FY 2025 budget for the Atlanta Citizens Review Board and for other purposes.
Mr. Juan.
All right, Mr. Chair, colleagues, I'm moved to amend this to actually change it from 4 positions to 2. In the committee amendment form, Ms. Overstreet had pointed out, it looks like the position creation where the 4 should be struck out. It actually is, but I confirmed with Mr. Evans, the strikeout is actually the horizontal line in the 4. That's why you can't see it. Total actions should be 3, but everything else is correct. So I make that motion to amend.
Second. Questions or comments? Ms. Overstreet.
Doesn't it say total actions 5? I think that was the main problem.
Yeah, I made the note that it should be 3.
Okay, thanks.
All right, if there's nothing else, let's vote on the amendment.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. It's amended.
Second. If we're ready, let's vote. No, Ms. Overstreet, did you have a question or comment, or was that left over?
I do, after we vote. I already voted.
Then that vote is open.
Motion to approve is amended. Did we just do that?
It's happening now.
It sounded familiar.
Would
All
all
right.
members please vote? And the vote is closed. It's favorable as amended. Lastly, there are the goals and objectives to consider.
I do have something to say.
Go ahead.
So that paper really signifies something that we are working on, clearly, and something very important that we need to continue to work on. However, we can pass papers all day and have 50 million people sitting there and still not get the work done. So I would like for us to have a few action items, like this committee needs to have a justification for those positions come to us, specific as to what we plan to accomplish with each position, where we are now, with the backlog and everything, and where we should be in the next 12 months, and what how those positions will enact that. So that's why I'm positive about the legislation, but I really want to see change in what's being delivered in that department right now. Just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Ms. Bacteria.
Thank you. Piggybacking off of Councilmember Overstreet, my concern also, this paper moving forward and having checks and balances in place. My question, I don't know if it's for finance, I don't know if it's for legal, but is there a way for us to follow up in, 2-3 months to make sure that these positions were actually hired? Because I think a lot of the times the issues that we face is that we hear the complaints, we approve the positions, and then we have an issue with whoever is leading that group actually making the hires.
We can certainly work with HR to get a status report, but we're not going to be able to, guide the process. But
Completely
we can
understand.
certainly just give a status report of what has happened.
Is there a way for us to ask for a status report a month from today?
By Monday,
A month
Yeah.
from today.
you can ask for a status report. We'll coordinate with HR, and we'll make sure that they give an update.
Thank you.
I would suggest this is a PSLA matter, is it not? All right, to me, this is properly a public safety item, so we can discuss it with them, let them know about our comments today. All right, that takes us back to where we began, 2025 goals and objectives. Are we ready to move forward? Well, we're going to have to reconsider then. It's a public safety issue. All right, Mr. Wan has made a motion to adopt the draft goals and objectives, which I will second. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the goals and objectives? Seeing none, let's open the vote. Do you have a question or comment about the goals and objectives? Let's carry the.
Yes, I do have something to say. Yes.
But wait, on goals and objectives, let's carry the vote on that. Okay, but go ahead if that's what it's about.
I just email you a goal,
Okay.
an objective. So can we do this in the next 2 weeks? Do you mind?
Not particularly.
You don't mind, or?
No, that's
not?
fine.
Okay. Yes, please. Let's wait.
I'll
Yeah.
rescind my second.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
just sent it to, so I will tell you this. The reason why I'd like for us to wait 2 weeks is because the goal and objective that I'm sending to, that I sent to transportation, I decided it should really be dual. It should be both. Because it's surrounding around the procurement task force. So I think it should be both. So I just sent that to you while
That's
we're
fine.
sitting here today.
We will take it up at our next
Okay.
meeting, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I
time
just came up with
certain.
that great idea, like, I don't know, 2 hours ago.
I look forward to reading them.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? All right, that concludes our business. The third and final public hearing on the property tax legislation that is favorably moving out of committee today will be at 6 p.m. right here in this chamber. And if no one else has any announcements, we are adjourned. Thank you.